Today we'll be talking about mineral for goats, why they need it, what works best, how to keep from wasting expensive mineral, and the short and long-term benefits. I'll tell you about the mistakes we've made, the lessons we've learned, and what we're doing now that's working really well for the goats and for us. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up for that at bit.ly/getgoatwiseinsider. Before we get started on today's topic, I want to read a review titled, Very Helpful. Three Pines Family Farm writes, Millie is so easy to listen to and so knowledgeable. I appreciate her background in ruminant nutrition and cannot wait for an episode on minerals. I hope there is one. This is such a great resource for someone starting out and feeling overwhelmed by management and all the details involved. Thanks, Haley. If you'd like to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, scroll down to Ratings and Reviews, click on the purple words, Write a Review, then give me stars and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you, and you might just hear me share your review on the podcast. I read all of your reviews, and I'm here to give you the information you need to successfully raise goats, so today is the day we talk about mineral, Haley. Here's what's happening on the ranch. It's hot and dry as we'd expect this time of year. Our average first frost date is August 5th, so that could happen anytime, and honestly, I'm ready for cooler nights. The commercial goats are looking great, and we're just cruising through the next couple weeks until after county fair when the fall work starts. Lots of preparations going into the last week before fair, and then we'll have a wild week next week when the kids show the animals they've been raising. It's exciting. On to today's topic, mineral for goats. 2 years into raising show goats, we were feeding a custom mineral from our breeder, but in hindsight, consumption wasn't very good. The first year we did fine. Kids were born healthy and vigorous, and we had no real indication that we were heading toward trouble. But the second year, how did we know we had a problem? Oof, we had stillborn kids. Lots of stillborn kids. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was probably somewhere around 40%. Those kids had died probably 24 to 48 hours before birth. It was shocking and frustrating, and to this day, when we have a stillborn kid, I have a little mini panic attack worrying that we're going to head for another kidding season like we had then. Now, this is all related to the show goats, so things are a lot different with our commercial goats. I want you to keep that in mind as we're talking about this. So we also had, in addition to the stillborn kids, retained placentas in almost every doe. What that means is they just didn't pass their placenta after birth on their own. They also had rough hair coats. We had some hair loss. Conception rate wasn't great. We had lethargic kids. When the kids were born, they were not getting up and sucking. It was really hard. We had to tube almost everything. And then a lot of them had white muscle disease, which is when their back legs don't function very well, and that is caused by a selenium and vitamin E deficiency. As we got further into this kidding season, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse, we had a doe that aborted earlier. Her kid would not have survived outside the womb. And so I took that fetus and had a necropsy done on it to try to solve this problem. I had my suspicions, but I didn't know. So the necropsy showed several deficiencies in the kid, which means the doe was extremely deficient, because the doe will sacrifice her nutrients and give them to the kids in utero. So when a kid is deficient, the doe is extremely deficient. Our area here is deficient in copper, selenium, zinc, and manganese, and our mineral was not meeting the requirements due to a lack of consumption. We knew we had a big problem to solve, but we needed an emergency solution to get us through while we sorted out how we were going to solve the bigger problem. What we ended up doing is we used a product called Replamin, and I'll link that in the show notes. You can buy it in an 80cc tube or a 300cc tube, which requires an applicator. It's a vitamin and mineral supplement with probiotics, and if I only had a few goats, this is probably what I'd still be using. We dosed the goats 10 cc's every week for a month, 5 cc's weekly after that for a couple of months, and then 5 cc's once a month. It's so hard to do with big numbers, so Replamin was definitely a temporary solution while we tried to figure out a block or loose mineral option that would work for us. To test what the goats were seeking, we got a variety of salt blocks from the farm store, cut them into quarters, and put a piece of each kind in a tub to see what they preferred. What they selected to consume at different times of year was interesting to watch. They definitely wanted the high selenium block during gestation, but they also consumed the iodine, cobalt, sulfur, trace mineral, and plain old white salt blocks. While testing the salt blocks, I researched, and then we tested several commercial mineral mixes made for goats and sold at the local farm store. The consumption was not good, so we knew those weren't going to work for the long-term solution we were seeking. And after all, if they won't eat it, it's not meeting their needs. We learned that lesson already. I like to look for the easy answers first, but we weren't finding any. Replamin was doing a good job, but it just wasn't feasible for us. So I set off to mix up my own mineral. The irony of all this is that I worked for a mineral nutritionist at Colorado State, and that was when I decided that mineral was not my thing, and I went on to work in macronutrient ruminant nutrition. But I learned a lot about minerals while I was working there, and I was able to apply it and work toward a solution for the goats. What we were trying to find was either a loose or block mineral that could be fed to both the show and commercial goats. It needed to be free choice, palatable, easy to store and handle, and not require individual animal dosing. I played around with some different mixes, and I'm still adjusting it, but what we ended up with was a mixture of 3 things: Redmond salt plus selenium, kelp, and a NutriBalancer. The salt provides a naturally occurring source of minerals that in theory is more bioavailable than highly refined minerals because the minerals are still in their natural form, the way they would have been consumed before people started messing with it. The Redmond we chose has added selenium because we know that we're selenium deficient. The kelp provides minerals that are naturally chelated and therefore more bioavailable. The NutriBalancer is an organic product that is designed to be added to a feed like a pellet or grain mix and provide a balance of nutrients to the goats when they are consuming that feed. We're using it a little differently. It's mixed right in with the kelp and salt to make a free choice loose mineral. We mixed up the first batch of this mineral and the goats went wild for it. I was a little worried about overconsumption, but they leveled out quickly and now consume the same amount pretty consistently. After the goats were on it for a few months, we quit giving them Replamin, and all they've had is the mineral mix since then. We see an increase in consumption during gestation and right after kidding. I can judge the micronutrient quality of our hay we feed in winter based on the amount of mineral they consume, and we've made some hay purchasing decisions based on that. Low waste is important when I'm putting expensive mineral out in front of my goats, so we have invested in Ketchum's mineral feeders. They spin away from the wind and protect the mineral from storms. The goats can't tip them over unless they mob the feeder after I've let it run out. They're easy to move, just tip the feeder back on the base and roll it to its new location. They're everything I could want in a mineral feeder, and it's a small family business with great people, so we really like supporting that. We have one of the mini mineral feeders, and it's great for kids, but for everything else, the regular size is great, and we have 3 of those. Right now, the mineral feeder is in the night trap where they come to get water throughout the day and where they spend the night, so they have access whenever they want. I'll link those feeders in the show notes and post some pictures in the Facebook community. I still keep a tube of Replement on hand, and we use it on lactating dairy does, show stock, and anything that looks like it needs a little boost in the mineral department, but not often. One of our goals here on the ranch is soil building. You don't hear a lot about the role of minerals in soil health, but I see nutrient cycling and feeding quality minerals as very important to improve the overall soil nutrient profile, which in turn improves the micronutrient content of the forage growing in that soil. If we feed quality mineral, the goats pass more nutrients in their manure, that manure feeds the soil. This is long term. I may not see the whole benefit in my lifetime, but I hope to at least see some of the healing that will take place. There's also a genetic component to mineral requirements. In goats that are bred for a specific purpose, like milk production or muscling for show or things like that, oftentimes an unintended consequence of that is that some of their nutritional requirements will be higher, which puts them at greater risk for deficiencies. I get asked a lot about the mineral feeding system that has all the different minerals in different feeders, and the goats choose what they want. I've not tried this myself for a couple of reasons. First of all, scale. I could see this possibly working if you have a few head of goats, maybe even 20. But once you get to higher numbers, the logistics of the system would be too much to do well. Second, mineral interactions are like a web. One mineral affects another, and that one affects another, and so on. Some minerals have a partner mineral or nutrient, and without it, that mineral can't function in the way it is supposed to. Minerals don't exist in nature in a refined, single nutrient environment, so feeding them individually like this has the potential to cause some other problems. Let's say that you get busy, and maybe you have a few empty spots in your feeder. The potential is there for overconsumption of a mineral because its partner mineral isn't available, but the animal doesn't know that. Its nutritional wisdom is telling it to eat more of the mineral it can't absorb efficiently alone, which then can be toxic. To compound this, some of these minerals have the exact same symptoms for toxicity as they do for deficiency. Enter more confusion. Also, depending on the breeding of your goats, their instinct and nutritional wisdom may not be what it was in earlier generations. Breeding programs that are specific for one or two traits tend to neglect the other traits, and we end up with animals that have lost a good part of their instinct and nutritional wisdom. Again, I've not used this system, so I'm not speaking from experience, just explaining why I don't use it. I hope this helps you make a plan to meet the mineral needs of your goats, whether it's just a few or a few hundred. When goats are in a good mineral nutrition status, they don't get sick as easily, they can handle stress, and you'll avoid a slew of costly nutrition-related problems. Paying attention to mineral nutrition now will pay off big time in the future. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.